topic of today is what's the approach of having a multi-level system? So having the 3 levels of precepts and going up to discipleship. Let's discuss that a little bit.
Well, it's a very good question. The most important thing is that people at different level of attainment have different needs. And we need to be careful when we ascribe a need or a particular practice of one level to people at another level. And that is why, after naming these levels, beginner, intermediate, and whatnot, we decided to name them straightforwardly: a level 1, level 2, level 3. And then when you go deeper, and this probably will not be public, it will be level 4, level 5, and possibly level 6. And possibly level 7 as well. But at this point we're going with a 5-level system, where the first 3 levels will be available to anyone. In fact, very likely we will just post all the practices to the web for the first 3 levels. But then when a person becomes ready for more committed and therefore secret practices, then they will be exposed to level 4 and 5.
Why are they secret? Or why should they be?
Well, the standard answer is that certain practices are very powerful, and they can be misused by people who are not at the correct level. Another thing is that a person at lower level of understanding may not understand or misunderstand or view negatively practices from the higher level. And there are 2 opinions about this in Tantra. The opinion of just about all generations until 20th century has been that secret teachings should be kept secret, period. And then in the 20th century, particularly the second half, with the Dalai Lama being very prominent in this discussion, there was a discussion of what it is called self-sealing teachings. Self-sealed or self-sealing teachings are those that are, you basically will not understand them unless you're ready for them. So one of the people, definitely the Dalai Lama, said that he's the one who is traveling around giving super secret Kala Chakra initiation to anyone who wants to come. And he says something like this, I'm going to very loosely paraphrase, I don't want to put words in the Dalai Lama's, because I respect him, that those who are ready, they will understand the teachings very well. Those who are not ready, they will have an interesting entertainment, or they will have a seed of future attainment planted into them. So And I think that for something like Kala Chakra initiation, I think that's fine. I mean, I've read not so recently a book about it, and I think that there's nothing particularly dangerous in these teachings. But in our tradition, we do have teachings which are very powerful and dangerous. And I absolutely don't want to mess with general public knowing these teachings before their due time. It's not about them being secret, but I just don't want to take responsibility. I don't want some not so ready person running around like a mad person doing, things which they shouldn't do. And I am different, I think, from my guru in this way. I am not interested in initiating people. I don't care if many people come and initiate it. I mean, I'm open to initiating people, surely. But I want them to be, 100 times ready before they come to me. I'm not interested in quantity at all.
So it's much more respect of their own development and respect of the social situation in terms of having someone who's not ready for them, basically.
Correct.
Go a little crazy.
Yeah. And, I think we can see plenty of evidence of that craziness in my guru's organization.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that it is some kind of innovation that is not being called for blatantly by them. At least that's my view.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about level 1 precepts. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And sorry for the audience, I'm gonna consult my computer here, which I don't think you can see. So level 1 precepts used to be called beginner. We have removed the beginner designation because I want everyone to practice them, but they are accessible. They're easiest of all of them. And all precepts are pretty easy, but these are the easiest of them all.
But powerful.
Yes. My goal with all precepts was always simple, effective, and culturally neutral. These are the 3 words that were in my mind. So,
could you expound a little bit upon those 3 goals?
sure. Simple. As opposed to stupid.
Or complicated.
Or complicated. There's no need to make something more complicated than it needs to be. I don't have an ego, and I don't want my students to have an ego about following complicated practices that do not accomplish anything special from their complexity. So the simpler the system, the better it is, as long as it accomplishes what you desire. And I'm going to give a very funny example. All of you, more likely than not, use computers, and all of you have probably used a program or 2 or 3 that accomplishes the same thing, like for example editing pictures. And one program is very simple, another program is complicated, another program is even more complicated, but they all accomplish the same thing. It's just the way the tools are laid out, the way they're accessible is easy. And this does not mean that the effectiveness of these practices is compromised. In fact, if in any place I felt that I needed to go for effectiveness, I would, and I had, and I have, I I just kept those teachings in. So I made these precepts as simple as possible without losing effectiveness. Talking of effectiveness, effectiveness is how quickly these teachings produce results. Now, we haven't yet figured out how to measure these things, but in my experience, and I've been teaching since 82 formally, so we're talking about getting very close to 30 years, I have seen that these practices work very well. And I did not include any practices where I doubt their efficacy. Okay? Work well in terms of what? Making your life better, making you healthier, making your enjoyment of life more, leading you towards enlightenment, towards understanding who you are in the most efficient way. That's all. Am I promising something big? No, because you are the one who has to travel the path, and if you drive a car, a good car or a bad car can be a method of transportation, or a way to hit a tree, or drive off a cliff, or get drunk and kill someone. Okay, so these practices, like any other tools, need to be used intelligently. It's that simple. Now, if you don't use them intelligently, God help you. But these practices are not that problematic that if you don't use them intelligently, there will be something catastrophic.
But I mean, going back to what you just said, if you don't use them intelligently, then the efficacy is not really there.
Correct. Yeah.
That's really what's being said.
Exactly. Yeah.
Culturally neutral.
Culturally neutral. Culturally neutral is difficult to accomplish because we communicate these teachings through a medium of culture. And culture is basically a collection of thought forms, beliefs, ideas that travel in a particular society, be it United States, be it India, be it Philippines, and they color perception of people. So culture really defines quite a bit how we see things. So my idea of culturally neutral is that it is neutral for Russian American who have spent quite a few years in the United States. I'm probably more American in terms of my intellectual expression than I'm Russian. At the same time, I love Asia, so I have a lot of Asian culture in me. So I'm all the time, like in my mind, when I say culturally neutral, I always aim, will Americans understand this? Will Europeans understand this? Will Indians and Filipinos and Chinese will understand that? So these are the countries that are in my mind. Now, I'm not trying to exclude other cultures at all. In fact, I would love to visit them and teach there and socialize and enjoy people there. But culturally neutral means that we do not use loaded language that means something in one culture and is meaningless in another culture. Specifically, many times meanings are hidden in culture. And on the surface, they mean one thing, but underneath they mean something else. So, for example, in one of the cultures, the idea of doing spiritual practices may be frightening to your family members because they are worried that you're going to run away. In another culture, doing these precepts may be meaningless because people don't understand why these precepts are necessary, why these teachings are necessary. So, I guess culturally neutral for me means that these precepts will work more or less equally well in all cultures. And I think there is a little bit of the following contamination in this. I think that American culture, through the internet, is beginning to, I'm not going to say the word dominate because it's not true, but it's beginning to influence. And I think that rational, verbal, internet-based approach is what's been going on in the last 10, 15, 20 years, and it will certainly continue to expand as we go along. So how do you communicate teachings? Through the internet medium. So that when someone in India reads them, or someone in America reads them, or someone in Israel reads them, or someone in Jordan reads them, or in Africa, they get more or less the same benefit as, say, people here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my goal. Whether I'm going to accomplish this or not, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
But it remains to be seen, because we're about to launch these teachings, and their effectiveness will be evaluated as we go along. And, by the way, if we need to change them, we will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have ego investment in the way these things go.
Yeah, but I mean that comes to the first the second commitment that we really want these teachings to be, which is effective. So if they're not effective, then obviously we adapt to make them effective.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say, that everyone who knows me knows that I am very respectful, reverential for the people of the past. I think that some amazing people have been on this planet. These teachings are not based on something I pulled out of my head. They're just distillation, reinterpretation, clarification of teachings which have been there before me. In fact, I hardly think there is anything new in these teachings.
Mm-hmm.
But the interpretation is definitely new.
Yeah.
It's appropriate to the new generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in 20, 30 years, they will need to be reevaluated.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want this to be a fixed teaching that after 2,000 years people will be still practicing and worrying about why, or God forbid, fighting over, because they have forgotten that the teachings need to be changed, as times change.
Mm-hmm.
I think my guru used to say, subjective approach, objective adjustment. So the subject of these teachings is the same, moving along closer to God. But how it accomplished, it has to change because people have changed.
Mm-hmm. Language change.
Yes. Language defines thoughts. Thoughts changed.
Mm-hmm.